Will the zoning committee for August 22nd please come to order? With us this evening, we have Councilor Patch, Councilor Keefe, Councilor McKenna, Councilor Powers, Councilor Tondo, and Councilor Zambuto. Also, we have with us, who is not on the committee, is Council President Giannino, and that's it. Okay. At this time, we'd like to go out of order and take C-16-07. It's basically a modifying of a non-conforming use, four-family structure at 200 Ocean Ave. Mr. Simeoni? Mr. Simeoni?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the Zoning Subcommittee. My name is Attorney Lawrence Simeoni, and I represent Frank Licata of 244 Vinton Street, Melrose, Massachusetts. Mr. Licata seeks a special permit to modify a non-conforming structure in accordance with 1740-030, specifically making alterations to the structure which amount to about 300 square feet. The structure is located on a 5,955 square foot parcel in the RC2 district. It is a four-family with 4 off-street parking spaces. It has been determined by the Site Plan Review Committee and the building inspector that the structure is a non-conforming structure, and as such, the proposed modifications to the exterior require a special permit. On June 18, 2013, the matter came before this Honorable Council, and it granted the same special permit. Again, the reason why we're here today is because we pulled the building, Mr. Licata pulled the building permit on May 23rd, 2014, building permit 12079. And although he did exterior work, he didn't complete everything he wanted to. The building inspector felt that we should go back to the council, notwithstanding the effectiveness of pulling a building permit and the legal consequences therein. As you know, we're affecting 3 particular bedrooms. Those 3 bedrooms will make the size and design of the interior structure better. There'll be no increase in bedroom sizes. There are 4 single bedrooms. One was like a studio. We made it a 1-bedroom, so it'll remain a 4-unit, 4-bedroom structure. If you have any other questions, or the committee does, I'll be glad to answer them.
Again, this is just a rehash of the previous. Anyone else have any questions? To be none? All right, Larry.
Oh, one other thing, Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry. I did have the opportunity to have the applicant meet and review the plans with the new ward councilman and councilwoman McKenna.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other proponents? Any opponents? There being none, councils? Any questions? There being none?
Thank you.
Is a motion to approve? So be. All those in favor, all those opposed, so voted? Right.
Thank you, Mr. Happ.
You do not have to stay for the next meeting later on.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you. The next issue will be PUD 1601 TransDel Corp. LLC Redgate. They're looking to put a 5-story hotel and a 6-story multifamily dwelling at 260, what is it, 205 Revere Beach Boulevard. Parkway. I'm all screwed up. At this time, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, member of the committees. My name is Greg Bielecki. I'm with Gate Residential, one of the team proposing a development at 205 Revere Beach Parkway. We have a short group of materials I think you have with you. Well, I know I've already presented this to the City Council in full, so just a very quick review of the project, and then also update on a couple of project changes. So turning through the slides, we also have it up on the big screen, but I'll gladly, we'll see if we can coordinate that. So on the page called Existing Conditions, 2 more slides ahead, you see the existing, everyone knows, is the old abandoned grocery store with basically almost 5 acres of impervious surface. So the next page, the site plan, we're showing, again, as we presented to you earlier, a hotel on the westerly side of the property in a residential building on the easterly side. On the next page, hotel overview. This is basically the hotel that we described. I believe at the time we talked about it as being a 128-key hotel. We have now, in the furtherance of the design, made it into a 132 key room hotel. I also will point out there was some confusion, I think, a little bit we heard back, not necessarily from members of the council, but from members of the audience, about what flag or brand the hotel would carry. And we said that we hadn't yet identified what that would be. And some people asked us whether that meant was it going to be a national brand, and the answer is it is. And Christine Thomas, who's here, who works as XSS, I showed you the most recent hotels that she's built in the greater Boston area, and they all carry a nationally recognized brand or flag, and this one will as well. Just the way the process works, when she goes to those national hotel companies, they want to know that the site has been under control and the permitting is set before she has those conversations. So we haven't had the conversation yet, but it will be at a readily recognizable national brand. On the next page, we showed you some rendered views of the hotel, which are similar to the ones we showed you previously. On the next page, called Hotel Elevations, this is just to show you that we have been working very closely with the city staff. There's a lot of attention has been paid at the request of Mayor Arrigo and others that these be first-class buildings. They're buildings that will be seen by a lot of people, will reflect on the city of Revere, and they should be great-looking buildings. So we've taken a lot of time to work with the staff on making sure that both the hotel facades and the residential facades meet that high standard. On the next page, we talk about the residential overview. The most important change since the hearing is at the request of Mayor Arrigo and to respond to concerns about density at the site. We have reduced the proposed unit count for the apartments from 240 units to 220 units. We're keeping fundamentally the same unit mix, mostly studio and one bedrooms and no 3 bedrooms at all. Because there are fewer units, we've reduced the size of the building. We've also increased the open space on the site. We have also, because of the lower number of units and the parking count is essentially the same, we only lost a handful of units in the parking by reducing the building. So the parking ratio has gone up to 1.4 spaces per unit, and our estimates of the traffic generated by the project have gone down, reflecting the lower unit count. So we've also showed you here, and you will remember from last month, some views both of the Greenway, which we have committed to. You've seen in the Site Plan Review Committee's recommendations, committed to a publicly accessible linear park in front of the apartments that will be built and maintained by us, replacing a very poor sidewalk in front of the parking lot right now. On the next page, we're showing you again a rendering of the building comparing to the existing parking lot. Turning the page to residential elevations, again, we have worked hard to make sure the facade meets a first-class standard. As I mentioned to you last time, we actually added to our team and brought Lawrence Cheng from Brunner Cott onto the team. He's designed some terrific buildings in downtown Boston. And so we've worked very hard to make sure this is of the quality of design and materials similar to a first-class building that you'd see in Boston or Cambridge. On the next page, entitled Residential Elevations, again, this is just to say, glad to answer any questions about it, but just to say we've worked closely with the Site Review Committee to particularly identify the quality of materials that would be used, and they're all, again, first-class materials comparable to what you would see to a project in Boston or in Cambridge. Community outreach, the next page, just to remind everyone that we have been, since before the City Council hearing and since the City Council hearing, we've been in an ongoing conversation with neighbors. We did hold 2 community meetings at the police station on Revere Beach Parkway. We also met on the site or behind the site with the neighbors from Standish and Elliott Road and walked through their properties with them and along the road to see what impacts there might be. As you will see in the site plan review report, we have agreed both to plantings and/or fencing along the back edge, the Sales Creek edge of our property, as well as committed to having continuing conversations with the neighbors about whether in some cases they may also want a landscaped or fenced buffer on their property as well, if that is more effective in preventing any visual impacts to them. On the benefit side, I just wanted to reiterate the new city revenues that we expect to see from this project. The site now produces a little more than $100,000 in real estate taxes. We expect that in the first year, this site, between property taxes, hotel and meals taxes, the local option, as well as the upfront fees, building fee, community impact fee, sewer inflow and infiltration fee, will be over $3 million in the first year. And frankly, for the long-term fiscal health of the city, probably more importantly, that we expect that the annual recurring delta will be more than $1 million a year if the project will proceed as identified here. And that's all before the expectation that approving this development would position the city to obtain a state MassWorks grant in the approximate amount of $3.6 million. So with respect to the schools, I know that's an issue of great concern that's been expressed. Revere, everyone in Revere is very proud of their schools and wants to maintain that way. There's been concern about the number of school kids. And I just want to point out in this slide that based on your most recent budget submission, about 44% of your annual budget goes to your schools. So this is, if we're talking about more than $1 million a year here, then we're talking close to $500,000 a year additional revenue for the schools. And if you turn to the next page, this is just reiterating what we showed you last time, but we think that $500,000 for the school every year is really a net number, because based on the actual results of our three most recent properties, there's really few or no school kids. And even if at $500,000 a year additional revenue for Revere schools, even if there are 1 or 2 or 3 new school kids, it's going to be a very positive effect on the health of the Revere school system. On the next page, this again is a map that we showed you before of the community improvements, replacing water and sewer lines, adding new sidewalks, and improved crosswalks and signalization for both vehicular and pedestrian safety. And just point out again that this is not just improvements within the 4 corners of our property, but really extends all the way down into the heart of Beachmont and then all the way down to Elliott Circle and the beach as well. So I'm prepared to answer any questions that you have, but I thank you for the opportunity. We really do believe that this is an important day in Revere because we have the opportunity to deliver a terrific new project that will support the city, and in particular will bring a hotel, and I know a lot of people have been asking about in Revere, and we think this is the opportunity to make this happen. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Bilecki. Why don't we hold off the questions until the end, okay? We see Mayor Arrigo is in attendance.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I stand before you this afternoon in support wholeheartedly of the modified proposal to develop the Shaw site with a mixed-use project. And there are just a couple of things that I want to remind everyone of as you think about this project and as you go through the process of taking a look at what's being proposed. This is a new proposal. Last year, as I think all of you remember, there was a proposal that had no commercial component, and that was something that I had fought very hard for. I made a promise to make sure that we're always going to be looking at development in terms of adding commercial entities, and the developers were willing to come back to the table and add a commercial component. And that was at my insistence, and I want to make sure that everyone remembers that. What we have and what you have, Mr. Chairman, before you is a great example of a mixed-use development, both residential and commercial. And the residential component, I will remind everyone, has gone down 30% is 30% smaller than the original proposal was last year, and it added the commercial component. A couple of things that it's not a traffic generator, and it's not going to be a burden on our school system. But what this is, and Mr. Bielecki pointed out a little bit of it, this will be a revenue generator for the city. What we're talking about is approximately $12 million over the next 5 years that is going to get back into city services. This is a project that is going to bring to the table significant infrastructure improvements. The water line on the Parkway is a mess, and it needs to be replaced. This project will replace that line at no cost to the city. This is also going to be a job generator. The original proposal last year would have created 6 jobs. With the commercial component that I fought for, we're going to create 36 jobs and hundreds of construction jobs. And finally, what this project means, it is a message, I think, to the entire development community that we are going to fight for right-sized development, and that development is going to include commercial components. And I want to make sure everyone understands that this is about the city first and foremost. And that's everything I do in this building and home is about the city and putting the city first. And the message that we send that we will expect nothing less than right-sized development that has a commercial component and at the end of the day has a benefit for the entire city represents what I'm here to do. So this project, I've worked very hard on working with the developers to make sure that they understand that we can't have projects that continue to burden our city services, and this is a project that will not do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Are there any other proponents to this plan? Proponents. Any other proponents? Yeah. What did I say, opponents? Yes, sir. Name and address, please.
Good evening. My name is August Blake. I live over at Parkside, 15 Parkside Place. I want to say I've been a resident for a few years, and I support the project. I think it's a right step for Revere. It's a step in the right direction. I was surprised to hear that from the mayor that he's looking to go this direction with new developments. It's unlike anything we've seen. I enjoy, following land use planning type topics, and I think this is a really good step for Revere. It's something different, and there's a lot of improvements for Revere in it. It's pretty unusual for a developer to respect the community this way. A lot of them will just try and cut and run, no improvements to the area. The area looks great, though, I think, the way they're proposing it, and I think the improvements will be really nice for the people who live in that area.
Thank you, sir. You got a list there?
Yes. Frank Licata, 244 Vinton Street, Melrose.
Name and address, please.
Frank Licata, 244 Vinton Street, Melrose, Mass. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I was a principal of the matter you took up just before this one, but I've also, I grew up in the city. I currently own property in the city, and I care about the city of Revere, and I've seen that vacant supermarket standing vacant for a long time, and I don't think that helps anyone, neighbors, or the city overall. and I'm happy to see a project proposed for that site. And the whole beach area itself has taken a long time to develop, and I'm glad we've got a lot of momentum now, and I think this would be another piece of it. I think when a developer comes to the city, and I think we should welcome them and maybe even thank them in some cases in terms of the tax revenue that the project would generate. So as a former resident and a current property owner, I just would like to put my, you know,
2 cents in.
Put my 2 cents in, okay. So, so thank you very much.
Ed DeVoe, 216 Crescent Ave, Revere.
Ed?
Thanks for allowing me to offer my comments. I, too, am in total support for this project. I'm a third-generation resident of Beachmont. My family's been there since the 1930s, and you all know that I've been very active in the community, in Beachmont, and throughout the city, and for the neighborhood and the city that I love dearly and work very hard to do what I can for it. I want to say that there's a number of reasons why I think this project is good. I think the developer's already laid out, and the mayor has already laid out the economic benefits to the city. You know, when you look at the architectural design and the landscaping that's going to come out of this, it's going to make an eyesore something beautiful and something that's, you know, the old broken glass window effect. Okay, well, now we're going to have a nice looking window, and people, developers coming to the city are going to see this and going to say, you know, this is a good area to develop in. When we look at the traffic study, I think that was also pointed out. I think a lot of people raised issues about the traffic, and the numbers show that it's going to be roughly 37% reduction in overall traffic coming in and out of that project. You know, what I've seen and heard in all the discussions and all the meetings about this project relative to traffic is these guys have gone over backwards in terms of money and funding that they're trying to do to address traffic issues. I look at the projects down the beach. I haven't seen or heard as much information or work being done to address traffic issues on those projects as what I'm hearing here. So, you know, and I think the mayor said it's not so much of an issue, but, you know, but that keeps being brought up, and I think it's worth noting. This is not a big issue, and the fact of the matter is they're trying to do something before it becomes an issue. That's another reason why I think the project is good. The developer has also shown a commitment, you know, to listen to residents and the city and to do what's needed. They've reduced the scope of the project. They've made it a mixed use. They brought in hotels where it wasn't there before, where we asked for them to do that. You know, they're working with the residents to try and identify what are the issues. They've talked about meeting with them, putting fencing up, doing work on their own properties. These guys are doing everything they can to make this a project that will work for the residents and the city. You know, and regarding the hotel, I just wanted to bring up, you know, this is a small hotel, right? I've heard proposals in the past and people saying in the past, we would like to see a large-scale hotel on that property. Well, I would like to say to the residents, what the heck would it be like if a large-scale hotel were on that property with all the activity that goes on with a large-scale hotel? This is going to be far more passive than I think any large-scale hotel ever would have been on that property. Another concern raised was the whole issue about schooling, and I think we've heard about that. And you know, the whole thing about, you know, that and with the other large projects that are going on. We've heard about restricting large-scale residential units and just approving 1 to 4 family houses. Well, where are all the school students coming from? They're coming from the 2, 3, and 4 family houses that are now 6, 7, and 8 family houses because they've been broken up. That's where the school population is coming from, not these projects. So these projects are not going to raise school populations. You know, and finally, I just want to say, you know, I know there's a lot of people that don't share my feelings on this thing, my opinion, and yet, you know, I truly believe that, you know, if we set aside our emotions and look at the project logically and strategically, we're going to find that it makes sense, and that it can be used to establish standards and policies for future development in the area. You know, look around in East Boston, Chelsea, Somerville, Medford, Everett, just to name a few. They were all experiencing changes because of migration of people out of the city looking for affordable housing in areas that have public transportation. And geez, we've got one of the best things going in the beach. You know, it's a tide, it's a wave that's coming, and there's nothing we can do to stop that wave. And to try and do it without preparing and adapting to what's happening is going to only be, present problems for us down the road. I understand that we all want simpler times when there was less traffic and fewer people and fewer problems, but that's not coming back. We need to look forward. We don't need to look back. We need to look forward. We need to look at the issues, and I'm not going to say there aren't issues, but we need to look at them. We need to address them. We need to handle them. And we need to do it in a way that makes this project a shining example for all other projects. Because that is the only way this city is going to move forward, and move forward in a good fashion. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. Now, we're going to try to adhere to the 2-minute rule. Again, I didn't mention that here, but 2-minute rule.
Ralph DeChico, 49 Washington Street, Revere.
Ralph DeChico, 49 Washington Street. Yes, since the new revised plan on July 7th, I have changed my views towards this since they have downsized the project. They did take into account some views that people had. Even though it is 20 less units is a great deal if you really look at it in all aspects. And the hotel, I think, is a greater benefit when I sat down and weighed the options, whether to not want this project and not have a hotel that could be a catalyst for future developers wanting to come to the city. I think this could be not only a good gateway for the city, but a good gateway to the development community to see that we are susceptible for different ideas. Also, the main infrastructure for that water main, that $3.6 or $3.8 million, where would we be getting that? Not only does that suffice to that area of Beachmont, that's a main trunk through the city, I do believe. I'm not a typical engineer, but it may be. But like I say, I think this could be a catalyst. I'm gonna bet my bottom dollar and hope that this is the catalyst for a new beginning for Revere, with the residential and commercial aspect being together in it, and hope that this opens up new avenues for Revere, for the future of Revere, not only economically, but socially. Thank you.
Thanks, Ralph.
There's a letter from Jody DiLorenzo on file. She would like to be recorded as a proponent.
Okay. Are there any other proponents at this point in time? Please come up and identify yourself.
Chairman, Michael Falzoni, 68 South Ave, and a former resident of Thornton Street in the vicinity. When I grew up on Thornton Street, it was a pleasant and an enjoyable neighborhood. The houses were all conformed and respected, and my father took great care in the home that we lived in. It was me, my sister, and my parents, 4 people in a 3-bedroom house, the way the house was designed for, with a beautiful backyard, 20 tomato plants, and a grapevine, and we had a place to play. I recently visited this location where I grew up. The backyard is now a parking lot. There's about 4 or 5, maybe 6 cars at a time for a small building. This is a 3-family. What a lot of people are doing, if City of Revere is gonna grow, let's be part of it and let's take control of it and let's mold it and not allow what's going on happening. Non-conforming bedrooms, what was the living room and the dining room is now supplemental income for the renters. They're sub-renting and subleasing, and it's putting a huge tax and burden. How do we address this problem? Well, without funding and without money, without $12 million, we can't increase inspectional services. We can't increase our DPW manpower. I've been to a couple of council meetings. Joanne McKenna and Ira talked about signage. And the guy at the DPW is doing other things. He should be doing his jobs and putting up signs. $12 million can do that. We can hire additional much-needed manpower to get the city on track. It takes me 15 minutes at 9 o'clock to go from Revere to Chelsea. To get here at 4 o'clock took me 35 minutes. I was late. I was upset. I wanted to take a baseball bat to every street light because they're out of sync. They're not talking to each other. One light saying go green on red. There's a traffic jam. That car's blocking me to continue up to City Hall. There's things called smart traffic lights. They know, and they know in the morning if there's traffic going north, all the lights go north. And in that nighttime, if the traffic's going south, they're smart. My phone can tell me the weather, what time my plane arrives. These street lights are still on antiquated timing. They don't know what they're doing. They don't talk to each other. With $12 million, we can do that. With $12 million, we can buy the senior center a decent bingo parlor set instead of the little toy thing that they play with. We can buy Morris a sound system. $12 million can do a lot of things for the city. And I would love Morris, $12 a month, buy him Pandora. Please, it's $12. We're talking $12 million. Thank you for your time.
Go. I have any other proponents at this point in time? I'd like to ask Greg one question. Where? Oh, Carol? Nope, no problem.
My name is Carol Ty, 51 Endicott Avenue, Beachmont, lifelong resident of Beachmont. I had real second thoughts about this project as it first began. And one of the reasons I have changed, several of the reasons for which I have changed have been expressed by other people. The improvements in the project, last week we had another disastrous water main break, and there is no other way that is going to be fixed. I am concerned about the school population, but there is some truth, there is a great deal of truth to the theory that the major increase in school population is not coming from huge developments such as the ones that we have already, but coming from traditional two-family houses, which are now four-family houses. I can see, you know, Bob, our own street on Endicott Avenue, what it was like when we were children. It is not like that anymore. The houses that used to be traditional family ones with 2 or 3 generations of the same family living in the houses and next door, that's not so anymore. The population has increased exponentially. They are looking for housing. I was opposed to the previous generation because it didn't have enough commercial space and it didn't have enough, I thought, of consideration for the neighborhood. For example, when we were building new schools, the West Revere folks up there, for whatever reason, absolutely wanted a 12-foot fence in front of their houses. I thought that a 12-foot fence would be ridiculous. But it's what they wanted, and I do urge the developers to take into consideration what the folks who are living there in the back want to protect their quality of life. I'm very much concerned about the type of apartment. That has changed completely. I told the developers we now have 26 children in the Garfield School in each kindergarten. We have no room. If we had enough money, we could probably build on another room and hire enough teacher, but you know how difficult, all of you, the budget process is this year, where we have lost the funding for 2,227 kids. And unless the state does something to do that, we won't have anything better. But I'll tell you, I want a new high school. I really want a new high school. And we deserve that. And our kids deserve that. And I think it's our obligation to find a way to give our kids a new high school. I was hopeful that we could have had a casino development at Suffolk Downs. That hasn't happened. But what I am hopeful for is that the kind of development that I see here will in some way affect what is going to happen over in Suffolk Downs. And at any rate, I guess all of us here want to see the increase in funds, and we probably all have a way that we want to spend it. I trust the mayor and his staff for what he has said. I tell you, I pass through Chelsea maybe 3 times a week, and I've said to Tom Ambrosino, how is it that all of this has happened over here? And I'll tell you, I don't want the parade to pass us by. And I think if we do not take this development, the parade will pass us by. We can't stay the same. We either have to move forward or go backward. So please, let's not let the parade pass us by. Thank you.
Thank you, School Committee Member Carol Ty. Anyone else who hasn't signed in that would like to speak? Greg, there's a list of requirements by the site plan review. You have that copy.
I do.
Do you agree with all the issues on there?
Yes, we're supportive of this
Okay.
submission.
That's what I wanted to make sure of. Okay, thank you. Proponents? Opponents? No, there's none. Proponents? Yeah, opponents, yeah.
We're on to opponents. Mr. Morris, 19 Standish Road.
My name is Morris. I live at 19 Standish Road. I'm a direct abutter to the project at 205 American Legion Parkway. There's going to be two big problems there, and I can speak for myself, and I'm sure I can speak for a lot of the neighbors that live there. The temporary problem is going to be the construction, which will go on. People that live there have families now. They have little children now, so that's going to keep them busy. And you have senior citizens there, too, like myself, living there. So that's going to be a problem with the construction going on unless it's done within certain times of the day. That we don't know what time of the day they're going to do, so I would appreciate if they would tell us. The second part of it, which is going to be a permanent problem, is when the hotel goes up, the people that do live there will lose their privacy. They may say they won't, but we know they will. People that have pools in their yards will not be able to go out and use them safely without having eyes staring down from 4, 5, 6 stories up there. That would be number one. As far as the traffic goes, for me to get out of North Shore Road to come to the Revere Senior Center in the morning is a hassle in itself sometimes, and that's at 8:30, 9 o'clock, because we're crossing to the highway. Only 3 or 4 cars can get in before they could even make the right turn to go into Shore Supermarket. Those are permanent problems, and unless they're rectified, I would be against it. But at 87 years old, I would not hinder the construction of them going on. And I would like to say this, if it had to come down to a final vote, and I had to be the final vote, I would vote against it. Thank you.
Mr. William Bell, 235 Revere Street, Revere.
Mr. Chairman, honorable committee members, first of all, with all due respect to you, Mr. Chairman, please treat the developers the same way you're treating Revere residents. Ask Commissioner Bilecki for his home address, please, and all the other proponents. I don't believe he gave his address. Are you going to ask him his address like we have? Newton. You know, I'm a Revere guy, but I get around. Brookline, Newton, Nahant. I'm tired of these people coming before us and promising the world and then changing. Mr. Chairman, you were the mayor when Steve Bodie, if I remember correctly, promised the world on Ocean Ave for hotels, and that fell apart. Some of you were the council members when NECO promised all kinds of jobs for Revere residents, and we know how that worked out, don't we? I want this committee to recommend to the full council the same type of thing that you, the city of Revere, forces little 1- and 2-family homeowners to adhere to. Parking requirements. When I was a city councilor, I tried to make 2 parking spaces per unit. And one of my colleagues, nice guy, ultra-conservative, said, "You're going to cost the developers money." I said, "Well, those parking spaces will be worth their weight in gold someday." Of course, that councilor doesn't live in Revere anymore. He moved to a more affluent community. If these developers, and I respect people that try to make money, I'm the last one who will say you shouldn't. Don't do it at the expense of Revere residents. If they try to do this in Boston, West Roxbury, Jamaica Plain, they'd have to provide for the elderly. They'd have to have set aside some units. Not one elected official in this city this year has said publicly that these developers should set aside X amount of percentage for the elderly. Why can't they? Let them make their millions of dollars in the hotel. I know they're in the hotel business in other communities, but I kind of wonder if there are apartment houses connected to them in Chelsea. I know people from Chelsea have reached over to Revere and made those phone calls lobbying. There's 10 of you council members that can vote on this. One, I believe, can't, because there's state money involved in a certain department. And I wish that person would think very carefully about this. Former Commissioner Balicki said something about a certain state agency coming forward with some money. So before the final vote later on, I would hope there's some thought about that. Mr. Chairman, there's enough traffic in the city of Revere. Unlike some of these people from out of town, and most of all the developers do live out of town, I travel the roads of the city. Just like 78% of the people in Revere that I believe are opposed to more traffic and more apartment houses. I went through Town Line today in Malden. That's a hotel. You don't want to know what sits in that hotel. We've got another potential project right down the street, Luigi's. If you happen to approve this tonight, those people are going to come before you and ask to approve a project. We have Ocean Avenue coming up. I'm not necessarily against everything, but why can't one of you propose elderly housing as a proportion of it? There is a motion sitting here being buried for 9 months, Mr. Chairman, with all due respect, for moratorium. Former Mayor Rizzo came before this board, last year's board, and proposed a moratorium. Later on, when it was filed, there was a comment made it was illegal as proposed. Well, that was back in December. Here we are, August, 9 months later, and no move at all for a moratorium or a study. Last week, I appeared before the License Commission in favor of a small business gentleman on Revere Beach Boulevard. Not one nearby abutter opposed to what he wanted to do. Not one. Provides a lot of employment to Revere residents, spent a lot of money fixing up that building. And one person, an official, opposed it later on with an asinine argument about 500 feet away, some people might be bothered. You know what? I wish you all well. Think of the people. You don't represent these people. They might be solicited or have been solicited in the past for some donations. You don't represent them at all. You represent some of us that live in Revere for years. Just do the right thing. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilor.
Joe Lorenza, 31 Standish Road, Revere. 31A, excuse me.
My name is Joe Lorenza. I abut this, what they're going to build. I am totally against this. He's had a folder last meeting. This has been going on since December. And this is the third proposal that they've given you people, if you stop and think of it. And don't tell me the traffic isn't going to be fouled up out there. Sooner or later, somebody's going to get killed at that gas station, that Sunoco gas station, because they're taking illegal lefts, illegal rights. And don't tell me, if you look at his figures, he has 1.6 cars per minute leaving his area from 6 o'clock in the morning until 9 o'clock in the morning. Let's face it, there's no 6.6 cars. Let's round it off to 2. That's 120 cars an hour for 4 hours in the morning, and then it's another 120 cars at night for 3 hours at night. Don't tell me that you're not going to get fouled up with traffic. I don't care what you do with them signals, Ira. Nothing's going to stop that traffic jam. You can't even control what's going on when you have the sand sculptures. North Shore Road is a parking lot, and it's going to remain a parking lot. If you let this thing go through, it's going to be a hazard. Everything around this area is one-family homes, not 6 stories high. I'm totally against this. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
Maureen Mahoney, 85 Lucia Ave, Revere. She's going to be recorded as an opponent. Okay. We have Jacqueline Levasseur and Cecilia Snyder, 1760 North Shore Road.
Hi, I'm Cecilia Levasseur, and it's
How you doing?
Jacqueline Snyder.
Yeah.
I am here, I just want to go on record, it's my first time here. I wanted to go on record that I am opposed to this project. I live at 1760 North Shore Road, the corner of North Shore and Elliott. I park on Elliott Road where my driveway is. 10 minutes it takes me to get from there onto North Shore Road now. When this project, it looks good, it looks really nice in those pictures, but you all know that property. That scale is way too big for that property. And the amount of people, there's gonna be housing, you're still gonna have people. They didn't say one word, everything was glowing and wonderful, and it's gonna bring 12-point-something million into the city. That money only goes so far. Carol Ty thinks for the school is great, and the TPW, 12 million does not go that far anymore. We don't have sidewalks. I've been with you over the years. The kids going to the school now. I sit on my back porch and I watch the traffic and the cars come down Elliott because it's the only access to the Garfield, and they're flying down that street. My grandchildren, I have to walk them and make sure they stay up against the fence because everybody's walking in the street down there. Are they going to be able to change that? Because I also abut that. I'm across the street, but it's going to affect me. I just semi-retired. Luckily I could. Sitting on my back porch this morning, reading the paper. It's nice, it's just a few months. I'm young, I want to enjoy this. I'm looking over at the sky and the trees. I'm not going to see that anymore. There's going to be a 6-story building there. My view is going to be gone. And the rats that it's going to bring when you look at the problem we had when you did the police station. The rats that we had in that area, we have to live with that day after day. We're the ones that have to worry about chasing the rodents out of our backyards and out of our trash. And I'm done. I want to go on record, I am opposed to this project.
Thank you. Wait, at the end. Oh, construction, they have to abate it. Absolutely, yeah. Frank? It just indicated to me from Walcott Road South, 1 month, they'll abate it. Yeah. Okay, who's next?
I have John Torano, 33 Standish Road, is being recorded as an opponent, but that's all I have on the list, Councilor Haas.
Are there any other opponents to this project? Jim Mercurio.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jim Mercurio, 128 Crescent Ave, Beachmont, Revere. Pardon my appearance, I just came off a job site. I'm opposed to this project for 3 reasons. First is we're taking a commercial piece of property and willing 75% of it to a residential rate. So we're going to be losing a lot of tax revenue right there. The commercial rate is $28.70 right now, and the residential rate is $14.45 right now. Mr. Chairman, what percentage is that going to be residential? How much of the property is going to residential?
Frank, will you have that? Of the square footage total?
Is it 2/3 of the property? Okay.
I think it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
No one has an answer for that?
Yeah. Excuse me?
No one has an answer for that, or
50% of it?
only 50%? Okay. Then the other issue I have, 2/3. The other concern I have is the parking. You know, the city has set rules for parking for developers to come into this town, and I think they're looking for a waiver on the parking. Is that part of the zoning issue right now? I mean, we laid down laws in the city of Revere for every unit that's being built in the city, there should be 1.2 to 1.5 parking spots. They do not have enough parking for the units that they require. And the third thing is the extended stay. These extended stays have kitchenettes, living rooms, and small bedrooms. In Boston, they're called micro apartments. You know, I feel as though these are not appropriate for this area. I think if she wants to do a hotel in the area with just a room and maybe a little refrigerator in the living room, I think that would be more appropriate for this development. We have a very, very valuable piece of land here down at the Shaw's site. It is the gateway to Revere Beach. It's the gateway to Beachmont. I think this development is not the best development. This is the second proposal that they proposed to us. I am for the hotel part of it, but the scale of this apartment building that they're going to be putting there is ginormous. I don't know. I'm very familiar with construction. I know site layouts. It is going to be enormous. And I feel bad for the people in Standish Road. They're going to have to look at this elevated building. Yes, it's 5 stories, but they're down about 30 feet, so it's going to look like a 10-story building by the time it's all said and done. I am opposed to this project. I think these developers are good people. They have done great projects. The hotel developer is first class. She does great projects. I feel as though that we could do better on this property. My name is Jim Mercurio, and I'm a taxpayer in Revere. Thank you.
Thank you, Jimmy. Your name and address.
My name is Jan Dumas, D-U-M-A-S. I live at 50 Walnut Avenue. And I'm opposed to the project. First off, I think that 5 stories is just too large for that property. I live in the Shirley Avenue neighborhood. I'm part of the group that's trying to improve the Shirley Ave neighborhood. And we've already have problems with parking, with traffic in the area. People are using North Shore Road as a shortcut, and I only see that getting worse. And I don't really see any benefits for the neighborhood to have this additional property tower there. It's going to put more pressure on us. It's going to put more pressure on Beachmont. I'm wondering if any of you would like to live with that in your backyard, because I don't. I'm more than happy to look at something that's maybe 3 stories, but I think anything bigger than that is just too big for the neighborhood. I live at 50 Walnut Avenue. It's an 11-story building surrounded by 3- and 4-story buildings. And we don't really fit in that neighborhood. And none of my neighbors really enjoy the shadows thrown from my building, the parking, the traffic, and all of that. I don't want any other people to have to go through that. So I'd love a development there. I'd love something more to the scale of the neighborhood and something that helps to improve the entire Shirley Ave community. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to speak?
Jacqueline Snyder, 1760 North Shore Road. My mother is Cecilia Levasseur. I just have more of a question that hasn't been appropriately answered or to my liking. One of the major one being, it was brought up that you're trying to attract the millennials, those my age 32, 33 and younger, into Revere from in town or from other communities. What is going to stop them from doing their business at the places they work, like in downtown Boston and the other surrounding cities where they take the buses in to Revere or take the train? They're going to do their food shopping close to home, so they'll go to Stop and Shop or Market Basket. But most of their other personal shopping, they're going to do in other parts of town. They're not going to do in Revere. So I have the question of how is that going to help Revere? Secondly, with the traffic and speed in the area. As it stands, the speed on Revere Beach Parkway is 40 miles an hour. On North Shore Road, it's 30, I think. I clocked Centennial Ave at Atlas Auto Body all the way out to Revere Beach Parkway. Not one speed limit sign. There was one school zone sign, half hidden by a tree, that you can't see that it's posted 20 miles an hour because it's covered. But from that entire length from Centennial down to Revere Beach Parkway on North Shore Road, there was not one speed limit sign. There's none in the area heading down towards the Garfield, coming down Elliott. The traffic over there, they fly. It's a miracle in the 20 years that I've lived there that no one's been killed. Now you want to add more cars into the area who are not going to obey the speed limit signs, the few that there are, just like everybody else. What's going to be done to stop that, to improve the quality of life for the current residents, not only the ones that you want to bring in? That's it.
Thank you. Anyone else who'd like to speak? Now's the time. From the podium. Absolutely.
My name is Joe Lorenzo again. I don't care who answers these, but they're going to abate the building. Okay, so that's fine. Are they going to clean the creek? And you cannot let them alter that creek. Because the last proposal in December, it stated right on the letter that was all the abutters got, alter the creek. You cannot allow them to alter that creek. Because you start changing the flow of that water, we'll be knee deep. You remember?
Yeah, I remember.
In
Right,
96,
absolutely.
what we had there.
Frank, can you answer that question? The creek, Seals Creek, what are they going to be doing to that? Frank's in charge of community development. Okay.
Yeah, so regarding the creek, you'll see in the order of conditions from the site plan review committee that they have to clean the creek. They cannot alter the creek.
Right.
And there's still other permits that they have to obtain, Local Conservation Commission and DEP. So, and there are strict regulations regarding that creek and alteration or modification of the creek. They won't be able to touch anything beyond the banks of that creek.
But they're going to have to maintain the creek.
They will clean the creek, but not clean the bottom of the creek.
Right, the
The
sediment.
banks of the creek,
Right.
all the debris in the creek will be cleaned.
They're not gonna
From North Shore
sidecast
Road
either.
all the way down to our outfall on Washburn Avenue.
Right.
And they'll-
Okay. Does that answer your question, sir?
Yep,
Okay.
have more.
Oh,
I still have more.
We're here.
Are they going to put catch basins in their parking lots? Because there isn't any over at Shaw's.
Frank?
Frank, you might as well stand beside me.
Right.
because I got 6 or 8 more questions.
All right. All right. What they will have are, they will have underground chambers under the parking lot that are filtration chambers that will collect water from the site and leach it through the ground into the creek. And any runoff that occurs now will be filtered through these chambers. Okay? And I believe there's one outfall there that they will upgrade the outfall to make it more stable. It's starting to deteriorate and erode, and that will be upgraded.
Why don't you stay there, Frank?
No, this is for them. Are you going to put a fence up there? You going to put a fence up in the back?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Are you going to put a retainer wall along the creek to divert the water from going into the creek like it does right now?
You can't do that.
Some kind of retainer wall.
Yes.
The water right now, I think as everybody knows, the slope is back towards the creek, so it sort of just sheet drains off the parking lot. So we're going to control the water so it's coming, as Frank mentioned, in and down into the site, and that way, using the standard engineering tools that we have and that the city has approved, it will be cleaned up. Then the water does come from under the ground and then back into the creek. But 2 things. First, it's cleaned up, that it isn't now when it's running off of a broken parking lot. And secondly, those chambers control the rate of flow. So if it's a big storm, right now all the water just goes right off and right into the creek. And I know there's some flooding concerns in the neighborhood. First of all, we have less impervious surface. We have more grass and other stuff. So more of the rainwater, when it hits our site, will sink in and not go into the creek. And secondly, the water that goes into these chambers, it will come out over time, so there's not a big rush of water off the site. So that should help what they call peak flow, and that will be reduced also thanks to what we're doing.
Thank you.
Okay, your security lights, you're gonna face them away from the homes on Standish Road? You're gonna put them towards your building? Okay. What time is your rubbish plowing and sweeping going to be for both buildings? Your rubbish pickup, your plowing? Because we can't have it at 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. That's out.
Right. So in the community meeting, we prepared that those kind of maintenance functions, trash and otherwise, would happen between 8 in the morning and 6 at night, and I'm glad to repeat that today.
That's good. Thank you.
Are you going to buff your equipment on the roofs? Because you have air conditioners going to go up there, you have water filters going to go up there. Are you going to buff them so we don't hear in 2 or 3 years? You know what I'm talking about. After 5 years, them things go.
Mr. Bilecki?
That was also raised in the site plan review process, and that's, as Mr.
That's in
Stranger is
there.
pointing out, that's a particular requirement that we have. I just would want to say our terrific hotel partner wants me to say that if there's a big snowstorm at night, we are going to plow the driveway at night and not wait till late in the morning.
Oh, absolutely, no question.
Now, what are your pool hours going to be? You're going to have a pool. What are your pool hours going to be? Because we don't want to hear any wild parties out there. No, seriously, you know. That's the next question. Is there going to be alcohol allowed at this pool?
We would be glad to limit it till 10 at night.
10 at night? No, after 9 o'clock, you ain't supposed to make any noise. After 9 o'clock, you're not supposed to make any noise, right? Isn't that the correct hour, 9 o'clock, 8 o'clock? 11 o'clock? All right. And one final, where's your storage lines gonna go? Out to Route 16? Or you don't know? Your storage lines?
The sewer line will, there'll be a new sewer line installed from the manhole at the intersection of North Shore Road and Revere Beach Parkway into the site, a new 8-inch main. And that sewer flow heads northerly down behind the police station to a 24-inch line, which ultimately goes out to Revere Beach Parkway and under Mill Creek through Chelsea. So that's a major trunk line that services that whole section of the city.
Can you give me an idea on what the hours are gonna be for their construction hours?
Construction hours? From
Our ordinance states at 8 o'clock until 5 o'clock, unless they have permission from the police department.
Right.
Okay. Now,
8 to 5 with,
well, you know, he works nights, so
Yeah.
he's gonna be sleeping at 7. He comes home from 7 o'clock in the morning, he sleeps, so he's a butter. Okay, now, here you are gonna put all kinds of beautiful sidewalks in front of his building with the $3.6 million from the city of Revere. What happened to the sidewalks on Standish Road, on Elliott Road? We have no sidewalks yet. I've lived there 26 years and I still don't have a sidewalk. Huh?
the issue.
Well, okay. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions that they may have? Jimmy, come on up.
Just one quick question I'd
Nope.
like to ask. Jim Mercurio, 128 Crescent Ave, Beachmont. The $3.6 million grant, was that a mass grant? And who obtained it? Was it the city of Revere or the developer? And was it only specifically for that project?
I believe it is. Yeah, Brian?
So the 3.6 is a MassWorks grant, which is funded by the Executive Office for Housing and Economic Development. And there is an application that is due for shovel-ready projects the end of this month, I believe. So the proposal for the 3.6 million is due. The application is due at the end of this month, and we've already confirmed with the developers that this project will not go forward without that infusion of state money. So without the grant, there's no project.
got two, Bob.
Okay, there's no problem. We're here to 6. It's early.
No, first of all, I want to thank you when you were mayor because you came down to my house when we were flooded. Remember what? No. And I want to thank you for that there because at that time.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, and we still get the flooded, Joe, so the problem hasn't been rectified. And about the rats and mice, a very simple solution. Cats. I feed the cats. Okay, don't laugh because that has done very good for us in there. And I would like to say one more thing, if I may, and I'm
Sure, good.
the people that live on my street, I don't know who they are, but I want to thank them. They bring me cat food for the cats. Now, I do have a lot of cats. I know you're laughing, but when I moved in, we had a lot of rats.
Right.
We got rid of the rats because of the cats. Okay, so there is a solution. Just put a cat in your house, you get rid of the rat.
Right, absolutely. Thank you,
Okay,
Morris.
thank you.
Back there, yep. Yep, good, Frank.
Just one thing to add to the mayor's remarks regarding the Mass Works grant. That Mass Works grant is necessary, that this project is necessary to leverage that Mass Works grant. So without this project, there would be no Mass Works grant.
Oh, really?
So that
Okay.
$3.6 million, we just could not apply for it.
Right.
But not for this project.
Thank you for explaining that.
I just wanted to make one quick Ralph DeChico, 49 Washington Street. Just one other thing that I wanted to suggest to the developers that I forgot to state before. If this project does go through, I would appreciate it if we do use union labor on this project. And I would really like some type of commitment if we could get that. Would be great. Thank you.
Michael? Yeah.
Mike Falzoni, 68 South Ave. I hear a lot of concerns from constituents and my neighbors in the area. And one thing growing up I learned from my fellow friends down Shirley Ave, the old time, sometimes you have to rob Peter to pay Paul. We want street signs. We want lights. I want a sound system for Morris. If I walk away tonight with that, I'll be happy. But we need the money. We need the money. And $12 million, let's not forget, is $12 million on the table here. And I think what's more important is we need to form a committee, us, the community, to control the city on how we're going to spend this. We're not going to take the $12 million and give frivolous pay raises and this and that. We want to see the money spent wisely and to make the city of Revere a better place for all of us to live. That's all I have to say about that.
Good comments, Michael. Anyone else would like to have anything to say? City councilors? Joanne McKenna?
1 year ago, we sat in the chamber and struggled with this vote concerning the same development on the same site. Needless to say, it was no picnic, especially for me. 1 year later, we are faced with another difficult decision. This project has divided the community. Although technically it's in Ward 2, it sits in Beachmont's front yard. No ward is affected more than Beachmont. Ward 1. I made the details of the proposal available to inform my constituents and received overwhelming amounts of feedback, text, phone calls, social media messages, and many, many opinions from people who approached me on the street and even came to my house. The overwhelming majority of these voices expressed disapproval for this project. I heard many of the same concerns before 1 year ago when I voted yes for a second chance for these and any other reputable developers to represent their proposal. This was important to let any and all know that Revere is a community you can invest in and become a part of. But that vote was not an approval for this project itself, only for the process. Since day one, and this is the truth, I felt this project was too big for the site and the area, and a year later, with a new design, I am more convinced than ever. So tonight, I will represent the vast majority of the people, my constituents that vote their concern and feelings to me and vote no for this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne. Council Powers?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, as just about everyone knows, when this project first came before the City Council, I was 100% adamantly opposed to it. I felt that 300 units there was too intrusive into the neighborhood. But equally as important, I felt that the monies that would be generated would not be as great as proposed. So I informed the mayor, and I informed Mr. Bilecki, who called me one day, that I could not support this project unless the rate of apartments were decreased, the number of apartments, and that a hotel was provided on this site. Subsequently, they came back with a hotel and 240 units. That was the second proposal. I informed Mr. Bukili in the mayor's office, the mayor, and also Mr. Bilecki, that they would have to reduce it even further. They did. They brought it down another 20 units. You know, we all get up here and we talk about services that we need provided, and we do. I don't have a sidewalk in front of my house either, and I don't have any hopes of ever having one. The city is changing. There is an enormous draw on the services we do have available. I grew up in Beachmont, so I'm not against the people of Beachmont. I've lived in this city all of my life. Never moved out once. Didn't go to Marblehead or Swampscott or Nahant or anywhere else. I stayed here. Made the city my home. You know, Carol Ty, former superintendent, and I respect her tremendously. She speaks of a new high school. There's no question we need a new high school. Where do you get the money to pay for it? You're not going to get it by saying to developers, go away, we don't want you, we don't want this, or we don't want that. I've got a fire station down the Point of Pines. It's been closed for, I believe, 17, 18 years. On the Parkway, across from this proposed hotel, the people of Beachmont, people of Shirley Avenue, the Ward 2 area, they have engine 1, ladder 1 parked there ready to go all the time. And I'll give you a scenario. If there's a fire in Beachmont, God forbid, and I hope there never is, engine 1, ladder 1 are the first to go. Engine 4 on Broadway will go, and engine 5 down on Freeman Street will go. What do you have left covering the Point of Pines and Oak Island and Lower Revere Street? You got a pump up in North Revere, and you've got a ladder truck on Broadway. That doesn't work. We need to get that station open down there. And the only way that's ever going to happen is by bringing more revenue into the city. And I would ask the mayor tonight to think seriously about dedicating a portion of new growth coming into the city, such as the project going on down on the boulevard that'll bring in another $660,000. To dedicate at least a portion of that, a portion of the money down on Ocean Avenue, a portion on of the money on this site if it is approved, a portion of the money in back of the site on BJ's. Dedicate that toward adding that extra pump down in Point of Pines, engine 2. And that just doesn't serve Lower Revere Street, Oak Island, the Point of Pines. That serves the entire city. Because we're at a point now in the city, and the former chief and the new chief would tell you that that station needs to be open and open as quickly as possible to satisfy the public safety of the residents of this city. Now, you can say, well, you know, what's $12 million? I'm not going to talk about $12 million. I'm not going to talk about the first $3.5 million that we'd get through building permit fees, I&I money, etc. I'm not going to talk about the room excise tax. I'm going to talk about the second year, $1,268,000 in new revenue. What is $1,268,000? I'll tell you what it is. It's 10 times the amount of money that we will receive if this project does not go through. We get $100,000 plus a year now. If I did the math right, $1,200,000 in the second year is 10 times that amount of money. So let's just let that vacant piece of land sit there, have nothing go up on it. Let's send a message to developers that developers came in, they proposed something, they reduced it, we negotiated with them, they reduced it again, and then we told them to get out of town. We don't want your project. I don't think that's the way the city of Revere should be operating. I think we should be looking at each project, getting the most out of it for the citizens of this city, and providing that the developers can earn their dollar too. You just can't keep saying no in this city. You have to move forward. So I intend to vote this evening, if this comes up for a vote, in support of that project. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Powers. Councilor Keefe?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a few questions for the developers, if both the hotel and the residential would be able to speak on. The nationally recognized brand, I know that it's not listed here, but is there any way we can get some more insight on the types of brands or a guarantee on the exact flag that would be listed for the hotel?
Christine Thomas, XSS Hotels, 227 Marginal Street in Chelsea. That right now is,
He told Brian, too.
because of the nature of this being a airport proximate project, we're working with the very few top quality brands that are left available for the region, because there are territories to be respected, that we only develop upscale extended stay hotels, like upscale lifestyle and upper upscale upper upscale hotels. Stop there. Okay, so for this project, it's an upscale extended stay hotel from one of the several internationally represented lodging companies that brand in this segment.
And you will be Ms. Thomas, I believe? Ms. Thomas?
Yes, I'm sorry, yes.
And you will be in charge of operating this property?
Yes, as a company, I identify projects that I believe will work. We're a partnership that's very unique in the country, that we develop the project, we build and outfit with FF&E, provide the interior design, and operate and long-term hold the properties.
I just have a question, because I know you operate about 5 other properties.
We have 19 hotels.
19 hotels.
Yes.
Of the hotels, with the extended stay or any of your units, do any of your units currently accept housing vouchers or residents to live there because of the housing shortage or for income purposes living there long term?
No.
Not one?
That the only examples that I could possibly think of is a request from the city to assist a family that's been burned out while they get themselves on on the feet or several days while they're having lead abatement removed, but not, we're not in a state program to provide housing of any kind, no.
Okay, because that was a fear, I mean, I've obviously received word from a lot of constituents, and that was a major fear, that there would be long-term housing, housing assistance in an extended stay. I travel a lot for work, and I stay in extended stays. I'd like to consider them upscale.
Yeah,
but sometimes
residence inns.
I can only afford what I can afford as well, but, and through work. But I just wanted to make sure that they would not turn into long-term housing, rather than just where we hope to get just a business clientele or someone that's coming to visit our city for a short-term work, whatever it may be, doing a week or 2 weeks of business in the city. So thanks for answering those questions.
Thank you.
And some of the other questions for Mr. Bialecki. When it comes to the culvert, I know that we talked about this in the community meeting. I just wanted to clarify. You would take responsibility with allowance by the DEP and the EPA. You would take care of cleaning that up, the culvert or the creek?
The creek itself, we were saying we would, initially in connection with construction of the project, we would clean up the debris and trash that it's sort of filled with right now, and that we would agree to do that on an ongoing maintenance basis. There is a separate question of whether there's some sediment that's accumulated there and whether the creek would flow better in certain conditions if it wasn't there. And that's a big project, in part because we don't know at this point the contamination level of the sediment, although with some previous records of oil spills and so forth, we have a feeling that we know that it is contaminated to some degree. So removing or cleaning the sediment would be an entirely different, probably multi-million-dollar project. So we can't agree to that, but the trash and debris, yes.
So more of an aesthetic cleanup, and I understand there's certain things you can't touch, and certainly there's certain things that the EPA doesn't want you to touch to disturb it.
And that's, we don't want to disturb the sediment as it is, and then also there is a lot of natural growth there, so obviously, and that does have a positive effect. It keeps the banks of the creek stable and so forth, so we want it to remain in a natural and vegetated condition.
And just one last, I guess this would be...
And that provides, it does help. I know we've heard that it's not the entirety of creating a screen between us and our neighbors on Standish Road, but the vegetation that's there, it does help and gives us a head start in creating the buffer the neighbors want.
And one last request I would have is, would you be able to give us some form of guarantee that you would, when it comes to services rendered to your properties, both the apartment and the hotel, using local, whether it's a floral company, landscaping, I mean, you heard from a very nice landscaping company, I highly recommend come up here, but landscaping companies, floral companies, transportation companies, would you be able to form an agreement to utilize Revere businesses to help service your properties?
So I think we're prepared to consider them, and I think that we do that on the apartment side. We do it on our other properties now, and I think on the hotel side, I've heard Christine say at one of the community meetings that she looks to them first. Obviously, we have to be competitive both in the price and the quality of service, but I'm sure that we could agree to consider and to encourage local businesses to make their services known to us and that we would consider them.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Charlie Patch?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just got one more question about the hotel, the extended stay. The room tax.
Yes.
Does that work the same way it does for a regular hotel? Every
Absolutely.
day, $10 a day?
Yes, it is exactly the same as any hotel, not different.
Right. All right, thank you. First of all, I want to say, this, as we know, this all started last August, on a vote that to withdraw without prejudice. Fortunately, we won that vote 6-7. I was one of the ones that voted to have that withdrawal without prejudice, because I feel that I've always voted that way, and I think councils before me always voted that way, but it was a 6-5 vote. But I was hoping you were going to come back, because it's a commercial zoned spot, that we wouldn't have the residential still kind of high. I think the area is not large enough for the residential. Then I also have a problem with the extended stay hotel, because that's basically, in my opinion, still like an apartment. So you're going from originally 300 apartments to 220 residential to 132 rooms. So it's actually larger than the original one that everybody came out in an outroar against. I originally told the developer when I first spoke to him that I would go with the ward councilor, because I'm in Ward 6, but I also, as the Ward 1 councilor, have gotten many calls, and I've followed it on social media, and there's a lot of, a big majority of people in the city that unfortunately, they don't want to come up and speak, but they do their speaking online. So on that, I'll leave that I am going to back the Councilor Ward 1, and I am not going to vote for this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlie. Councilor Zambudo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think everybody knows I speak clearly up here, and I don't leave anything on the table. And I think there's an elephant in the room here.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't believe the non-election year conversion of some of my colleagues up here. One of them unfortunately left. Talked about an hour drive from Point of Pines to get here.
Right.
I don't know how that changed with this proposal, but obviously it did. I'm a little uncomfortable because I have a lot of respect for Secretary Bilecki. He was very good to the city of Revere when he was the gem of what I thought was a terrible administration. We'll leave that at that. Bottom line is here, this thing was held up as a political ploy, I believe, when it came before us. I hadn't decided on the proposal, but I had an open mind, as I do now. I had an open mind to that first proposal, but we never even got a chance to debate it. It became a political football, end of story. What I see here now is what supposedly a compromise, and with the extended stay rooms, we're going from 301 rooms of the original proposal back in August of last year to 352 rooms. Now, you can call, 132 of them are extended stay. They're still little apartments. I don't care what you say. They're still little apartments. They may be 1 or 2 night stays. I would love to see that, but you can't guarantee that in an extended stay. They're usually, I think, a couple of weeks at a time. Bottom line is, the density of this project hasn't changed. It's increased. You're asking for a lot more because it's been revamped, and the magic word hotel was put in there. Listen, you put a real hotel there, I'll bend over backwards, I'll do backflips, and you put a real hotel there, you'll get anything you want from me. But the bottom line here is, before I could even consider supporting this proposal, it would have to come down to like 300 rooms. That's the way I think would be a fair reconstruction of this project. We're talking about mass grants, and the grant was there for the last project, wasn't it? Was it? Oh. Not the same amount of money, but so it was 250,000 250,000, right? Is that what it was last time? I'm sure Secretary Bilecki knows it. He doesn't want to say. It's okay. It's fine. Bottom line is, unless this is drastically changed, I'm not supporting it. And I think it's fairness, and it's got to be about apples for apples, not apples for oranges. You don't come in with 132 keys and then get 50 more units. I don't buy it. I can't support it. But that doesn't mean I couldn't support a smaller project, so don't clap. Yeah, I'm usually, most of these things, I'm usually booed here. So I don't want any applause, because then I don't want the boos when I'm against you people. But, because I do what's best for the city, and I don't feel, as this is constructed, this project is best for the city right now. It could be reconstructed, and it could be good for the city, but I can't support it the way it is. I'm not going to go on and talk about who said what when and who didn't say what when, but there seems to be a non-election year conversion on this council. I'm impressed by that.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Ganasso.
Mr. Chairman, I also put a lot of thought in the process of making a decision in this particular matter based on the fact of how it was presented previously and what it occurs today. But I have a question out there for everybody in attendance and those watching at home. How many people would be for Shaw's if we were to put Shaw's there today? I think you'd be unanimous. Everybody would say yes. How many would be in favor of placing back the old Serratanis there? And I think, again, it would be unanimous. Everyone would say yes. Well, I did a little soul searching along with traffic impact studying. Very non-professional, just observation. I want to take everybody on a little tour of the city of Revere. Let's go up to Northgate, where everybody in the community opened with welcome arms, Market Basket. Let me say this about that. Market Basket has impacted the area dramatically. You can't even traverse the streets of Squire Road, Ward Street, Macoba Street, all the streets in the back that I represent, Lanton Road. You can't traverse those streets without being severely impacted by this neighborhood grocery store. It turned into a giant, of which I was in favor of also, because it's a good thing for our city. And we have Price right there, the same thing. Tremendous amount of traffic impact. And I think one would only have to say, you take another jaunt around the corner and go up to Stop and Shop around, and you see the same thing. You see traffic coming in, you see traffic going out. And I'm one of those individuals. I'm there a couple of times a week, 3-4 times a week, on both locations. There's a lot of traffic generated by these types of stores. Then I said, let's take a ride down to Waterfront Development, which is 70% occupied. I didn't see one car coming in. I didn't see one car going out. I went down to Carabetta's. I saw 2 cars going in, 1 car going out. And the time span that I spent in front of these locations, half an hour to 45 minutes. Nothing. And I did it on peak times. Because when people go to their homes, not everybody breaks at 5 from work. Some come at 2, 3, 4, 5. They leave to work 7, 8, 9, 10. There's different increments of time that they go to do their business and to provide funds for their family. So the traffic impact, and I just wish that everybody would take into consideration and weigh this out. Now, we can't speak of most of the traffic in our community. You know why? We're a regional city. That means the traffic cuts through our city from every other city and town surrounding us. They come from Marblehead, they come from Swampscott, they inundate Revere Beach. You can't even walk on Revere Beach or drive on Revere Beach because they're all coming to and from their homes there. So this isn't because there are hotels and there are apartments on Revere Beach. That is further than the truth. Walk the beach. Tell me how many cars you see going in and out of the St. George. How many cars you see going in and out of that? Quite a few units there. How many cars do you go out of Carabetta? It just doesn't make sense. Then we come to the big conversation in terms of cost per child going to educate children. there aren't very many children coming from these apartment buildings. I don't think there'll be one there either. Minimal amount for sure. I am concerned somewhat about the type of hotel that's going in there, because I had a very, very nasty experience with the motel that was located in Ward 3 when I was first newly elected to the city council. And that turned into a nightmare for me, every day, every night, based on the fact that the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, in its wisdom, was placing these displaced people in these properties, not giving them the proper furnishings to have this type of housing, but yet inundating the area residents with this type of stuff that was completely out of control. They just went wild. You know, every time that a good thing is done, another disservice is done to the community. And that was, for years, I went crazy with that property. Thankfully, a family took it over, they cleaned it all up, they threw all that stuff out, and it turned out okay. I hope that this particular project doesn't turn into that, because that is completely a nightmare. And I used to go on Elliott Road at least once a week. And I don't have a sidewalk either. And guess what? I don't want one. It allows me to put my car closer to my home and allows the traffic to go up and down without being distracted too much. And I don't mind having no sidewalk. But I used to visit Elliott Street, and I don't see how many people who are going to live and reside or come to this location are going to go down Elliott Road. They're not going to do it. They're going to stay in the mainstream. And they are going to shop locally. They're not going to shop in town, carry all their bundles in from town to Revere. They're going to go to the very closest places, which is the Stop and Shop, the Targets, right down the street. They're already there waiting for them, ready and available. So don't look at this as such a drastic impact on your neighborhood. The only thing I will say for the gentleman who lives in Standish Road and the people who live in Elliott Road, yeah, you are going to have to be blocked. There's no question about it because of the height. That's a given. But you know something? I don't see major grocery chains wanting to come into the area anymore because we've already got the best in place. We've got 2 Stop and Shops. We have Market Basket. There isn't very much room for more expansion of shopping areas. So, and then if you put a shopping mall, that's going to give you more traffic than you would ever imagine and bring you more grief. Then you have, at least this place will be policed, there'll be control, there'll be residents there, there'll be a quality of life that you both want to share. It's a hard decision, and I sympathize with the people of Ward 1 and Ward 2 tremendously. I think it's a tremendous change for them. But I don't really think that other than the people in Standish and Elliott Road, the people in Beachmont, they should open arms with this. This really, and I have very, very, very close friends that live in Beachmont, and I talk to this family every day. He's like my brother, this individual, and this is not going to impact them at all. This is not going to impact them at all, and I want to alleviate the fear that that's going to impact their lives, because it isn't. It's going to make a blighted area right now nicer. This is going to be a nicer place to live, and I think that give it an opportunity to take place, and it's the naysayers will always outdo the positive thinkers. That's for sure. In social media, by the advice of my children who are young adults, Dad, don't read it, don't look at it. You know, if it's not worthy of a conversation to you in person, it's not worthy of the conversation, because it's only people venting and people wanting to see their name in print. I don't buy into that system at all. And I just feel that I did weigh on this, believe it or not, and I weighed heavily on it. And trust me, I just feel that this will be a positive thing for our city. And secondary to all of this, the money won't hurt either. So I look forward to voting in favor of this proposal based on the facts that I just submitted. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor. Council President Janito.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think that there's no doubt that anyone here would have to say that the city of Revere needs more commercial development. It's a huge, huge issue in our city. We have a ton of great residential development that's already in place, and I think that's something that we need. Now, the issue with that is, in order to generate more commercial development, you need to start somewhere. And if you don't get the conversation started and you don't start with some smaller gateway projects, bigger players aren't going to look at our city. They're going to go right past it and look at what's happening in Everett and what's happening in Chelsea and what's happening around us, because it is happening and it's slow, but it's there. So I think that, some of the concerns that we talked about tonight were traffic, parking, rats. Anytime that you develop an area, you're going to have those issues. If it was a supermarket, if it was a shopping mall, if it was even housing, anytime that you develop land that's been there for as long as that has, you're going to have the issue of rodents. You're going to have traffic. You're going to have parking problems. And it's tough, but that's the nature of development. And, these are hopefully temporary issues that we'll deal with in order to move forward. But I truly believe that, when you look at some of the large parcels of land that we have in our city, we have Suffolk Downs, we have Wonderland, we have a lot of great lots of land that are developable and that are very high interest. And I think that in order to develop these bigger parcels, we need to start somewhere. Am I happy about that type of hotel necessarily? I think that we could have worked to figure out something a little different, but it's a start. And I will say, to have a developer come back a year later and make these improvements to decrease units, to listen to what the city wants, if we want to clean up this Seals Creek, any issues that have been brought up, the developer has addressed. It's not things that have went over their head, but it's a give and take, and it's a process of working together. So I hope that people see both sides of the fence, that we are really working to try to come up with something for the city. And it's not easy, and it's not something that anyone's taking lightly, but sometimes you have to make tough decisions to make better ones in the long run. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Maravito.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, let me say to all of you who took the time to come here tonight, thank you. I don't want any of you, whether you're a proponent or opponent, to feel discouraged, regardless of what the vote is at the end of the night. Regardless of what one of my colleagues had said earlier, whether someone's trying to paint a picture that this is a non-election year conversion is bogus. I put a lot of thought into this decision that I made. I went back and forth. Last time this developer came before this honorable council, the project was completely different. It was 30% larger. It was all residential. There were less job opportunities and less revenues for our city. So there has been a significant change. So I don't take this lightly at all. So anyone watching, anyone here, do not get discouraged, no matter what the turnout is with the vote. Pick up that phone. If you ever want to express your views, call each and every one of us, because we're here to listen to you. But at the end of the day, as you can see, there's proponents, opponents. We're basically a board of directors for a multi-million-dollar company, the city being the company, you guys being the stakeholders. The stakeholders are going to have different views, different opinions. At the end of the day, we have to act in what we feel is going to be in the best interest of our city. Because if we don't prosper, if we don't get revenue, we're not going to succeed as a city, and we're not going to be able to provide you the services and succeed as a city as a whole. The citizens, its city, all of us together. And instead of us having parting separate ways, we need to figure out a way to have unity. Sure, there's politics in every decision up here. Who's for something, who's against it. But my main decision wasn't based on that. Last time I voted against the project, it was all residential. I got a lot more phone calls last time this development came before us. And I take it very serious when someone throws the political football and says, hey, here we are. They're just making a vote because it's all politics. That's not true. And I want everyone to know that, because I did not take this lightly. Keep in mind, previously, the previous tenant was Shaw's, okay? most of my concerns, I got 5 phone calls compared to my 82 phone calls last time the developer came before me. And I got 2 emails. When Shaw's was the tenant there, okay, they had more traffic coming in and out of that parking lot. And I know this because I worked for Johnny's Food Master Supermarkets for 17 years. I've been in that industry. And that's a company chain. That's a family business. And at any given time, okay, you could get an average of 1,500 cars. Actually, on a slow day, at least 1,000 cars coming in and out of that parking lot. Shaw's was a corporate company. Regardless, okay, I see Joe shaking his head no. But let me tell you why. Because, for instance, right, when do most people shop? When do most people do grocery shopping? They do it peak hours, when they get out of work between 4 and 7 p.m. and Saturdays and Sundays. When is the brunt of our traffic in this city? Between 4 p.m. and 7 p.m. and the weekends. No matter what development goes to that site, if it's a desirable development that everyone wants, whether it's an outlet or not, it's going to have more in and out traffic. The level of activity is going to be higher than an apartment complex and a hotel combined. Another thing you've got to keep in mind, you want businesses to come to this city? What do they look at? They look at the city demographics. Whole Foods, do you think they're going to look at the city's demographics before they come into the city? And that's another thing to take into account. So as you can see, before us are the same developers. And the economic benefits are much better than the proposal before. We have less units, we have a smaller amount of units, we have a commercial component to it, we have more jobs, more revenue for our city. The economic benefits are there. And that's where I'm going to leave my last word.
Thank you, Councilor.
Just a point of information.
Charlie?
That first, that was not, that was a vote, that wasn't a vote on the residential, on the proposal. That first vote that we took.
Point of information. You stand correct. You stand correct.
That was a.
We pointed out
I got the
our
floor
view.
here. Do I have the floor here? That was a proposal. That vote that we took that night was for
Point of information.
developer to withdraw without prejudice. We gave them another chance to come back. I never even saw the first proposal, so I don't know what. Who did, but I certainly didn't. So that vote was not on a proposal. It was on a withdrawal without prejudice. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you,
Chairman.
Charlie.
Point
Stephen?
of information. There were plans that were rendered that everyone knew about. Everyone knew what the design was going to feature. We all made our decision. We all made our views that last year, and. So let me stand corrected. I did not take a vote. I did not vote for or against the project, but I was against that proposal at the time, or that potential design.
Thank you, Stephen. Novoselsky.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, as everybody knows, this is on the outer edge of Ward 2, 100% in Ward 2, on the borderline of Ward 1. And I have had many comments made from many of my constituents, Standish Road, Curtis Road, Clark Road, Walcott Road, Elliott Road, North Shore Road. And I have found from my comments that I've had about a 50% yes and no from from that area of people. And as I have in several other projects, I have to look outside the box. And I believe that's what I'm going to do here. It's been said, what comes first, the chicken or the eggs? In the case here, what comes first, the people or the retail? Retail will not come into the city of Revere anywhere unless they know there's a demographic call for it. And in this case, right now, we have our homeowners, our ones and two, some three-family homes in the immediate and abutting area. But we have to look outside. And this is a piece of property that's been vacant for 6 years. And even in the 6 years prior to those 6 years, all I got was complaints from Mr. Lorenza about the trash coming early, the plowing coming early, the rats coming out of the creek. It's not, I don't mind taking care of people. I want to take care of people. That's my job. I'm in public service. When he called me, I took care of him. I made a call to Shaw's, and he even made calls to Shaw's. Whenever his street had to be plowed out because of a big snowstorm, who does he call? Ira. Now, sometimes people have differences of opinions. And in this particular case, Morris has been brought up to date on the construction time, the privacy in the pools. Honestly, I don't buy, because the trees there, I went down there and walked every single house, and I looked at the angles in everybody's backyard of how high the building's going to be and how high the trees are now, how thick the brush is going to be in the summertime, and how thick the brush is going to be in the wintertime, to go and pursue the fence so the car lights don't go into these folks' homes at Standish Road. I look into these things. I don't just take people's words for it. We have to look at we're looking at sidewalks. Now, the sidewalks that these developers are going to do on Revere Beach Parkway and Winthrop Ave, which is Ward 1, are not being done by the city and not being done by the state. They're being done by the developer. That's $3.6 million, has nothing to do with sidewalks. It's all infrastructure. It's the water to help the pressure for Beachmont. We just had a breakdown here, a break in the water this past week. That's probably the 6th one we've had in the last 7 months. This is going to solve it. This is going to save the city from taking out another bond for another $3.6 million to help pay for additional water lines. We have to look at the big picture here, folks. Everybody has some legitimate things, but I know the developers have been down there constantly talking to the neighbors and trying to find out what are your needs. We will be glad to address them for you, and I believe they have. They're willing to put no trees on their property and the neighbors' properties. The fence is going to be extended all the way out to North Shore Road. We talked about the baiting. I'm the one that talked to them this afternoon about baiting. Normally, it's a 2-week prior to any construction in the city. I asked them if they would do 4 weeks. And not only that, and not only do their property, but do the adjacent neighbors' properties out to Walcott Road for the term of the construction. After that, they're going to have to bait their property. You have rodents in the creek that live there. That is their home. We're intruding on them. Granted, we want to see nice things, but a retail box store is not going to work there. You're going to have 10 times as much traffic as what you're going to get out of either the hotel or the residentials. I don't buy that there's now 138 extra units. They're not. They're not living units. They're temporary stay units. The living units are the 220 units, which is another thing that we had all asked for them to reduce, that I stress with them and their architects I even talked to them on how they would take it off. I tried to get them to take a floor off. But they couldn't do it based on the way the building is constructed. But they took off a whole end panel of the project. Folks, we have to move on this. I know we can always make things better, even for the people that are living there now. I think the traffic will be controlled better with the new signalization that's going to be put in at the Sunoco intersection and at the Domino's intersection. What we have now is antiquated. They're manual buttons that people have to go out to push. They're going to be able to fix these problems and adjust the signalization by going on a computer. I work with DCR and I work with MassDOT to extend the traffic coming out of North Shore Road. At one point, he was right. We can only get 3 cars going through coming southbound on North Shore Road. The best they can do for us, excuse me, sir, I gave you the time. I gave you the time. You give me the time. You give me the time, sir. Sir, you give me the time. Now, they check the signalization. We can get at least 10 cars out of North Shore Road, which is a lot. But there are problems there. I'm not saying it's 100%. But when we put in this new, or hopefully this signalization goes in, it will be 1,000 times better than what we see now. So the creek, the clean out was explained, debris only. We can't dredge. One thing I want to bring up to the developers is using local businesses, which they have offered to do. You know, I've spoken to them. I've given them a name of a particular landscaper, but they said, we know that there's more than one landscaper in the city. We go out and we bid out the job. They do it the democratic way. They put out a bid, they get prices, and they do their thing. I hope you do the same thing with your doggy daycare. There are people in the city that do doggy daycare. I hope the city people get the opportunity to use doggy daycare. We talk about Secretary Bielecki. He loves the city of Revere. Yes, he tied in with a developer, but when he was the secretary, he gave monies for 525 Beach Street. That was an eyesore before. Some of the people didn't want it, but most of the people did, and look what happens down there. You have a beautiful building, quiet as can be, and under control. Some of the things that some of the folks spoke about can be addressed without the developers. They're minor things. Speed limit signs, we can address that. But I just hope that people understand that the $3.6 million is for the infrastructure work. The $2.2 million that's mentioned in the $12 million is for the permits that we're going to get up front. And over 5 years, it's $6.2 million. But realize that that hotel is going to bring in, could potentially bring in $500,000 a year just in the room fees. That's a continual, automatic, extended thing. Excuse the pun for extended stay. But that's the way we have to go, and I know we should be doing the right thing, and we should move forward on this, and I would appreciate that the neighbors understand that it is a neighborhood thing, but it's also a citywide thing. So. Excuse me, sir.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman. Point of order, Mr. Chairman.
It's proper to talk to people. Like I spoke to you, sir.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman.
Ira, John. Okay. Councilor McKenna, again.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to say to Councilor Guanasso, with respect, that I disagree with the traffic problem in Beachmont, and it's not going to affect Beachmont. Right now, in Beachmont, the residents of Beachmont cannot get out of the neighborhood because of the oncoming traffic that comes from Bennington Street. We're a cut-through. and the oncoming traffic from Bennington Street, from Boston, cuts through Donley Square, which is very little, and they cut through to go to Swampscott, Lynn, wherever, okay? So the people of Beachmont have only one, well, we have two ways. We can go around to Revere Beach Parkway, or we could cut through Donley Square. When they're trying to cut through Donley Square, they can't even get out of the intersection. To cut over 2 lanes of traffic, to take a right to go to Broadway. It's horrendous. And Donley Square is broken. It really is. If I went down and stayed there for 3 hours and watched it, and it's broken. And if you think that a facility like this is not going to affect the traffic down in Donley Square, well, right now the traffic is broken. So when you put a facility like that, of course it's going to get affected. The thing here is we need to fix Donley Square before we put any kind of facility like that into the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne. Councilor Ganasso.
All due respect to my junior colleague, based on the fact that you lived on Martin
Point of
Street
order.
and you tried to come
Point
out
of
of
order.
Martin
What's your
Street
point
to
of
go to
order?
Revere Street,
We've now extended our time past 6 o'clock. I believe the commencement of the City Council Committee
well,
should
you're giving the
start.
point of
I
order
think
that
this
my
is
name
more
was
important,
mentioned.
George, than that. That's
This
my
is the
opinion.
first time that this has happened.
Mr. Chairman,
Just to note
Maybe
that.
Mr.
stick around
Chairman,
more.
Mr. Chairman, my name was mentioned. That's the only reason I rise to the occasion. If you try to leave Martin Street to cut through Revere Street, either side, you can't get out. And you know what? Good people from Beachmont go that way too. So I experience the pain of what's in our community. I'm not saying that this is going to inundate or free the traffic in Beachmont. But you know what? We all share in the pain of traffic. If you want to come, sometimes it takes me 4 or 5 minutes to get off my street. So I share the concerns, and a lot of good folks from Beachmont are going to Market Basket and Northgate, and they're coming right up Revere Street to go there. So,
Thank you,
know,
Councilor.
it works all for,
Thank you.
for all of us.
Stephen,
Ms. Thomas, I just have a quick question for you.
Just a point of information.
Point of information.
Our council meeting was scheduled 5 minutes ago, and we still have a Ways and Means meeting that was scheduled at 5:45, so we're about
couple
25
minutes.
minutes behind schedule, so if we could keep our comments brief.
Stephen?
Ms. Thomas? Just getting a sense of willingness for the hotel to be a good neighbor. In times of, obviously, like when we have severe weather, like for instance, this past winter, in Point of Pines, we had people whose basement was freezing and they had to go to a hotel. We don't have the power to negotiate as a council, but what is your company's willingness to take in Revere residents who are in need if there's a hurricane or if they are in some kind of disaster? If there's vacancy, obviously.
Thank you. That it would depend on the circumstances at the time, that we do view ourselves as good community citizens, and we try to do what we can.
Mr. Chairman?
And if I could propose to, and if this does patch, keyword if, maybe we can put some revenue from this project aside, since a lot of the burden will be on the Standish Road residents. Maybe we can give them some extra care with their road maintenance as well. Thank you.
Councilor Rotundo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to enlighten one of my colleagues that there's currently a plan in place that in the event of a natural disaster that people would go to actually the schools. And in fact, if there was a natural disaster, most inevitably, their site would be affected just as much as everybody else's residential property. So although their regard to help people is noted, their ability might not be any different than the rest of the city. And currently having a plan in place that exists utilizing the high school as well as the Wayland School, et cetera, Susan B. Anthony School, just to note that. Thank you.
Let me just restate
Thank
that.
you.
And
Okay,
Mr. Chairman, just quickly.
Last statement. Okay.
Just say, for instance, Point of Pines, when the water came over the guardrails and their basements froze and they had no heat and they had to go out into hotels to look for sheltering. That would be a good opportunity for the hotel to show their sense of good neighborship.
They shut the year off. Thank you, Stephen. On the committee vote? Counsel Keefe?
Yes.
Counsel McKenna?
No.
Powers? Counsel Powers?
Yes.
Counsel Rotundo? Counsel Zambudo?
No.
Chairman, yes. Huh? Okay, yeah, as a tie. Yeah. We'll keep it in the committee. Keep it in the committee.
Point of order. Point of order. It gets forwarded to the whole council, sir. Oh, okay, I just overheard something differently. Thank you.
Yes.
So we recommended to City Council, simply a recommendation for City Council passing. That concludes the meeting. I'd like to thank the mayor, Mr. Chairman, Frank Licata, Mr. Balecki, and the staff. Most importantly, the citizens of Revere. What's that? Oh, I just wanted to thank the mayor, Frank Licata, Mr. Balecki, and his staff, and without question, the citizens who come up and voice their opinions. It passed 4-3.